Hello people, Kika here, and welcome to another Ladies' Night. So I recently sent out a survey to our patrons asking them about their relationships and sailing, and I was actually surprised to find out that a large percentage of the answers involved trying to convince their significant other to go sailing. And so I thought, let's dedicate episodes to this. Now, I'm no expert in relationships, so I reached out to other sailing couples out there so that they can chat about their unique relationship situations. My original plan was to combine all these interviews into one single video, but there are so many different scenarios out there, and of course every relationship is different. Plus, I was spending hours trying to edit this together and trying to squeeze all these information into a shorter video, which was impossible because it was full of so many great advice and so many great stories. So instead, over the next few weeks, I will do separated ladies' night videos dedicated to the couples out there. So tonight, let's start off with a less common scenario. Audrey is a sailor. She loves sailing, she loves long passages, and her husband, although he appreciates some aspects of sailing, he's not particularly fond of long passages. And so for this video, they chat and share what step they take to keep the balance in the relationship. So without further ado, let's get into it. So in your case, one of you sails.
That's me. And Carl is the snacktician and sometimes sails with me. So Carl was a friend of my older brother's, and we met when I was just finishing college. I used to sail a lot when I was a kid, and then once I got old enough to have summer jobs, I didn't sail so much. Then in college, I started sailing again. My brother and I would take 2 keelboats out for a long weekend, and we'd take friends. When we got married, we were originally not going to buy a couch, as you say, going around and exploring the world. And originally, we're going to just work in different countries and things. I guess I didn't really know that you didn't like sailing. I'd known he'd been sailing before with a friend.
I wouldn't put it quite that way. I actually enjoy aspects of sailing. Mm-hmm. I don't like being cold and wet. And and part of my problem with sailing itself is that it takes enough attention that you can't do something else, but it doesn't take enough of my attention for me to stop being a bit bored. So after more than sort of a couple of days of that, I'm ready to do something else. The other aspect is there are various ways that you can sail. I try to think very hard, specifically, what is it I like and don't like? Mm-hmm. Rather than saying, oh, it's sailing, complete turn off. If you can have that kind of conversation, or at least help the one who doesn't like sailing, encourage them to think specifically, then you might find ways to, get around block, or work around them, or realize perhaps it isn't such a block anyway. Yes, and the concepts, the dream which is sold, that looks and seems all very nice, but I'm aware of what the reality involves as well. Thanks to video blogs like yours.
I think it's important because at least you know that it's not always a perfect day, because it's really not.
So it comes down to communication and knowing yourself and being prepared to talk about it. We're still learning, I reckon, as a couple. So it isn't.
But you've seen that with sailing. It is how you communicate is so important. You have to be clear. You can't. You've got to be clear. You have to be concise as well.
Yeah. And knowing when to tell the person that if you're uncomfortable, if you're scared, or what you're scared about, to be able to convey that message without feeling bad about yourself. Yeah.
That can be the situation with people is I don't like sailing because I don't like the person you become when you're in charge on a boat. And I think that's often a problem in couples. That one person sometimes it's because of their own anxieties. I think yours and Dan's rule of thumb that whoever is wanting the most conservative approach, that trumps everything. But then what you need to do is you need to definitely make sure that the person who's less experienced or less comfortable speaks up clearly. Because and doesn't try to pretend that they're okay. Because the other side, where the more experienced person, if they're always kind of jumping in there, putting their hand on the wheel, taking over the helm a little bit, kind of helping when it's not been asked, then that kind of, I've seen that really demoralize people and they lose a lot of confidence.
In a lot of relationships, I feel like the word compromise is always a big deal, because knowing what you two want and what you two are willing to do and still work together and finding a compromise, I think that's such a major aspect in relationships.
He suffers when he's on the boat, so I didn't want him to suffer. We choose the times and the situations as much as one can for when he goes sailing. At the same time, he didn't want me to suffer not being able to sail at all, so he was always comfortable with me going and taking other opportunities. There's a club here that has a lot of keelboats of all different sizes. Everything's set up so people can single-hand sail. He's got a lot of ensigns as the smallest boats. And I started getting back into sailing about 7 years ago doing that. But I can always hop on and help somebody else cruise somewhere. You do a passage, and then you'd be quite happy doing a few days somewhere.
So that's right. Like, while you're still doing what you like to do, and you're still hoping that, I mean, Carl, you never know, right? You might at some point change your mind and say, you know what, let's move on the boat. And
well, I still try. I mean, we're talking about spending a week or so on a boat in January, aren't we?
Yeah.
So
down in the Virgin Islands. I think if he went and did a course with somebody else and really learned a lot more about navigation and everything else, I think he'd find it a lot more interesting, because then there'd be more to do.
And we're not cruising. We're not living a cruising life. So yes, I can still go bike riding. I can still go running, trail running, and do that. And Audrey can do her sailing.
Yeah.
I mean, I still haven't totally given up. Just baby steps. I think it will be harder for people who are at the start of their relationships. I think the best thing is to give the other person opportunities to develop their confidence independently from the relationship.
Cool. Well, guys, thank you so much for the chat.
Thank you.
It was so nice to meet you, and so nice to chat. And bye, guys. Cheers.
And I hope I see you at some point. Cheers.
Cheers.
The key in a relationship is to make decisions together, either to work on specific obstacles and slowly graduate into a sailing lifestyle, or to find compromises that will keep both of you happy and keep the relationship healthy. Anyway, that is it for this ladies' night. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. Cheers!